Good evening. Welcome to tonight's On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers. Tonight's show is 2 hours long and live, so if you have any questions for my guests during the show, text them to 87778 with the word EDGE, a space, and then your name, location and your message, and we'll try to pick up at any that really hit the mark. They're all charged at standard rate, so why not get ready to text? Before we start, I feel I must issue a warning. On tonight's show, we will be discussing some very sensitive subjects, including the activities of Britain's social services departments, the secret children's courts, the forced removal of children from their parents, often based on the opinions of experts who allegedly receive questionable financial incentives, the subsequent secret forced adoptions, and the alleged serious mental and even sexual abuse of children by those in positions of power. You have been warned. My guest tonight is a former Royal Naval officer who is now partly responsible for the radical newspaper called UK Column, who tours the country speaking to ever larger groups of concerned people, many of them parents, and who has previously been a guest on this show, on that occasion discussing the secretive charity organisation called Common Purpose. Tonight's show promises to be even more revelatory and a lot scarier than that, so I must stress that all opinions expressed by my guest are not necessarily those of the makers of this show or this channel. My guest is Brian Gerrish. What a show we've got tonight. Brian, welcome.
Good evening.
Very good to see you again after almost exactly a year. It's really weird how I'm getting these guests back almost exactly a year after I first booked them. It was more luck than planning.
It's incredible. Time's gone very quickly. A lot happening out there, and I'm delighted to be back.
Well, it was really good to see you. And as you know, I've seen you at a few other conferences and things, and you're speaking at the upcoming AV4 as well, aren't you, in March?
Yes, which I think is going to be a tremendous event. Ian Crane has done a great job getting those events going, and the enthusiasm and the interest from people attending is really tremendous. Plus, we've got a range of speakers, and I think this is a key thing. It's not on one topic. We're introducing all sorts of topics that are happening out there.
Well, talking of topics, as you know, last time we spoke about Common Purpose, and this time I dare say we'll touch upon Common Purpose a bit, but there is another subject that you're intimately involved in as well, isn't there?
Well, this is the subject of what's happening with families and children. And I've got to say that the only reason that I've started to get interested and involved in this subject is as a result of publishing the paper. So
UK Column.
The UK Column. The moment that paper and the earlier version, the Plymouth and Devonport column went out, the phone started to ring, and you would have principally mothers, but fathers as well, calling us to tell us what was happening to them. And what was common amongst the calls was that these people had got to the stage where they hadn't got anywhere else to go. They'd learnt of us, and the moment they're on the phone, they just want to tell you everything that's happened to them. And I think I mentioned it to you before, that in the beginning, you listen to somebody and you say to yourself, that can't be true. That just can't be true. And then eventually, the First Lady came down to see us, so drove 150 miles to come and see us in Plymouth, and brought with us ring files of documents. And I spent the whole day, well, in fact, I spent a day and a half with that particular lady, and I was just staggered at what she started to show me.
And it's not that rare, according to
It isn't that rare at all.
Told me.
And what is very interesting, it doesn't matter what part of the country the calls come from, they will tell you events which usually follow a sort of template. So the people don't know each other, they've never been in contact with each other, they have just suffered an event in their lives, and when I look at that, I can see similarities with other events. And the stories are so horrific that you say, if this is really going on in our society, we have got to wake up and do something about it. And that's why I've stuck with the subject. Some of it is very harrowing, and I must admit I found it difficult on occasions to stick with it, because you're very often hearing some very dark, tragic stories, and if you're not careful, it can pull you down. On the other hand, we're now at the point where we're starting to see people gaining strength from realising they're not alone. Not just because they're speaking to us, but because they're in contact with other parents.
And is it also perhaps because they're being believed?
And they're being believed. That is actually a very, very good point, because they will tell you that even when they go to their own family, very often the response is, no, this can't be right. You are talking about subjects where it's really challenging people's reality, what they think is real and normal, and what the other person's experiencing. And I've talked about this countrywide, that's England and Wales, but also it's happening in Scotland, and it's happening in Ireland as well. And I took a call...
in the Republic of Ireland? Or...
Republic of Ireland, yeah.
And Northern Ireland, presumably.
And Northern Ireland. But I took a call from a new lady last week who's over on the west coast of Ireland, and I think I'm allowed to say she was very relieved just to be able to talk to somebody who believed what she had to say. And I'll tell you a bit more about that.
Yes, OK. I think the other thing that's important to mention is that a lot of these cases, the judges in the cases, well, in any event, the courts are secret, but they prevent publication, and you actually get served with lots of injunctions preventing publication. Is that correct? Am I correct in saying
Well,
that?
absolutely right. This is the, I'm going to use the term wickedness of the whole system, is that under the smokescreen of protection for the child, you are running courts in secret, and therefore decisions are made completely out of the light of day. And that is not a good start. But basically, we are seeing constant talks about opening up the courts, but what they've really done is said we'll be more open about the judgments made within the courts. Well, that's not open at all.
So the pathway to that judgment is still a secret?
It's still a secret.
The opinions expressed and who expressed them and what evidence was presented?
Absolutely.
Are still a secret. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that is the case. And I'm going to say something which will probably shock a lot of people straight away, but we know factually that court transcripts are interfered with. So even if you end up with a transcript of what went on, it's been edited, and this is a common occurrence. It's regarded as normal practice in some courts.
Well, that is truly shocking, if that is indeed the case.
It is
and
true.
Obviously
well, Theo, we've been together before, and I
in the nicest possible way, I have to say.
Indeed, here in the studio. But this is a serious subject. I don't play at the subjects I get involved in. You're dealing with very serious issues to do with families and children, and you've got to go by evidence. And what I find extraordinary is that the evidence of what's being done is there. Now, if I can see the evidence, and if you can show it to a legally trained person and they can see the evidence, how is it that the parents can't actually make an impact on the court system?
You know, the thing is, I mean, we haven't got any texts on that subject at the moment, but I'm sure we would have texts from people who would say, but what if the parents are not fit to be parents? You know, what about baby P? What about children who are abused by their parents, which, of course, does happen?
Of course it does happen, and I'm happy to sit here and say that although I'm going to say some very tough things about the police and the courts and social services, of course, I'm not saying that everybody involved is a bad person. That's nonsense.
Or that every case is incorrect, where they take children away from parents.
Absolutely true. There are cases happening all the time where there needs to be some intervention and children taken away. However, we know, because the evidence is there, that we are also seeing a large number of cases, and I think we are heading into the thousands of cases. We're certainly in the high hundreds of cases.
Per annum?
Per annum, where children are being taken away from their families under false pretences.
But who are you to decide this, Brian? I mean, with all due respect, who are you to say that these... Because, you know, I've got to ask these questions. You know, I've got to be the devil's advocate here. Who are you to say that these children shouldn't be taken away, these thousands of children?
I'm going to talk about some cases, but we now come into a very interesting area, because the law states that I can't talk about these cases. So
good night from us.
no, because we can do some things. But this is one of the key bits for the viewers to understand, is that we have created a system in this country where the state can take people's children away, but we cannot openly talk not only about what happened using names and detail, but we cannot even show the documentation to prove that what we are saying is correct.